Hi, everybody. Welcome to Strategy Basics. This is our weekly podcast about all things consulting. And today we have Greg Kacev and me, Mayank Gupta. I'm the CEO of CaseBasix. And we're going to discuss about the latest thing, which is the McKinsey AI interview. So apparently McKinsey has launched this new interview, which is AI enabled or AI augmented. And Greg and I are going to talk about what's new, what's McKinsey doing, what does it mean for you, and why are they doing that, and how can you prepare in 2026? So welcome, Greg. How you doing?
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here, and I look forward to this conversation with you. Doing great coming from sunny South Africa today.
McKinsey is launching an AI interview, and we'll talk a bit about what this is about. So, early news suggests that what McKinsey is doing is they are adding on another round of interview which uses AI or has AI elements in that interview process. So, what it could mean is there is a case that you need to solve, and you have to use AI as your buddy. So let's say you're Sherlock Holmes and you've got your sidekick. The sidekick gives you all this information, and then you've got to help the client understand what they need to do. And so this AI is there to help you gather data, help you organize all the information, but you're still going to do a lot of structuring, a lot of frameworking around what the client wants. You're still going to be the person presenting to the client. You are the middleman between the AI and the client. So the AI is there to gather all the information, but you still need to present it to the client. You still need to help the client understand why they need to do something. So all the persuasion, all the helping the client through this difficult decision, all those elements are AIs. Greg, what do you think about it?
Actually, I think it's very interesting how they're going to incorporate AI and the AI interview in some of their final rounds. And basically, what they're going to give you is a realistic business case, something that really looks and feels like a normal consulting case interview that you would get. But the real twist is that they're really watching you how you use the tool. So do you ask this AI interviewer clear, focused questions? Do you notice when the output or the answer is a bit vague or off? And then do you refine your prompt instead of just blindly trusting it? And importantly, I think this is one of the key elements, is that the McKinsey or they're not looking for you to be a prompt engineer or a coder. You're not expected to be a machine learning expert. And what they're looking to do is they're evaluating still the classical consulting skills, judgment, structured thinking, iteration, and communication. It's just AI supported now instead of a face-to-face human interaction. And I've done a lot of reading about this, and one of the useful ways to think about this is treat the AI like a smart but imperfect junior team member. Your job in this interview is to give a clear, brief, concise, and challenging prompt to him, challenge the work that's given back, and fix what's wrong or incomplete, and then own the final answer. So just like you would do in a normal case consulting interview. And I think if you come with that mindset and that format, it will probably feel a lot less intimidating than probably thinking it does right now.
I totally agree what you said about it's going to be an imperfect assistant because that's what we've seen with AI, right? Like AI is moody. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So when you have a firm deadline, you have a client that requires the best output, the best recommendations, but you are left with an imperfect tool, then you need to step in the middle and absorb all the shocks and make sure that the client still gets their end output, but you're still the one benefiting from the AI's capabilities, but also managing its shortcomings, which are, it's going to be moody, it's going to be imperfect, probably it's going to hallucinate. I don't think there's any AI out there that does not hallucinate. So
Yeah.
you're right. I think that's what McKinsey's looking for is can you live with AI, not just prompt it once? Can you wrangle it? Can you make it do what you need under timed conditions?
Yeah. No, and that makes complete sense. And it makes sense that McKinsey would introduce an AI sort of interview. AI is everywhere in the world. Most organizations are using it. So they want to make sure that their consultants are the best AI users around. And like you said, it's just about bringing that human element and that human touch instead of just blindly trusting the output that's given to you.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into, why is McKinsey doing this? And my viewpoints are this, right? There's two main reasons. Number one is I think McKinsey has realized that a lot of the kids coming out of unis nowadays across the globe, they're going to be AI native. They're not AI fluent, they're AI native. They were in school when AI came out in 2023, at least ChatGPT 3. And then since then, every month there's been some rollout, some improvement, and so on and so forth. And I think McKinsey realizes if they have to get this workforce and keep them happy, they need to give them tools that they're already used to. These folks have studied with AI, they've made personal decisions with AI, they've made trips and plans with AI. They ask AI for food recommendations, grocery store recommendations, and all that kind of stuff. So I think
people even ask AI about emotional support, so it's everywhere.
That is true. So they actually live with AI. They wake up in the morning and maybe they have a chat with AI. They go to bed. They're probably interacting with AI at some point. So I think that's number one. Is McKinsey like are very good at hiring young people. So anywhere in the range of 20 to 31, 32. That's where their age range is. So I think they have to cater to them. But the other thing is what you just said. They have to show to the rest of the world that they're drinking that Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid works under certain conditions. You, again, have to make sure that the AI knows how to listen to you, you know how to tame this beast, and then get the results that you're looking for. And I think when McKinsey walks into the room and they're talking to the CEO and they're giving all these results, the CEO is going to be like, okay, you want us to be AI forward? What about you? And McKinsey's like, look at all our workforce. They know how to deal with AI and we've already done it. And we recommend the same to you. And these are the productivity gains we get. And think about it. Nobody knows how this thing is going to work. Nobody has tested it. So I think McKinsey is the first one to do it. A last point I'll make is they have a big responsibility in the consulting world to make it work right. We've seen some other firms that have released reports. Like you said, the outputs weren't checked. Those firms will remain unnamed over here, but people know what we're talking about. And that just shows, I think, what AI-enabled consultants that don't check the output can do to the firm's brand name. McKinsey doesn't want any of that. And I think that is, I respect that decision because, it's a huge responsibility to take on this new challenge and incorporate it while maintaining a brand presence. What do you think?
Yeah, like you said, every company, consulting or non-consulting, is somehow integrating AI into their workplace and helping to boost productivity. And the way I see it is, why would you hire a McKinsey consultant who's going to use maybe the same AI tools as a full-time employee in that company? And it's all about the consultant being able to synthesize the insights tenfold better than any of the full-time employees can, and also understanding what the so what and the next steps are, and what is this going to lead to in a year or 2 years time, and building out that roadmap and that framework for the companies that are looking to not just embed AI, but also to see how it can improve productivity. Can they roll out more better products and services? And that's where you're going to get a McKinsey consultant who's not just going to come with the output, but also going to be able to come with the real recommendations that it's giving, and also being able to differentiate between real and tangible products and services and hallucinated products and services. And I think that's where the difference is going to be.
100%. And the point that you bring up is the company and its employees can use the same AI or similar AI to get the similar recommendations. I don't think AI is going to give all the answers. I think there's going to be this huge database that McKinsey has in terms of the cases that they've done in various industries from, let's say, 1980s till now. That's a huge database. That is proprietary. They can use AI to say, oh, in the consumer goods space, let's say in the toy business, we improved pricing by doing three things, and we think we can apply these same rules in your industry. Let's say the industry is something like baby clothes. And so that level of detail AI will not give you. It's going to give you generic information. And I think the employees in that business, let's say the baby clothes business, they will not have that much in-depth information about, let's say, the toy business.
I definitely agree with you there. But coming back to what this means for the candidate, I've actually got a question for you. And what do you feel the impact this AI interview is going to have on consulting firms and the industry as a whole? Because historically, when McKinsey has introduced new assessments, like Red Rock or other firms have often followed suit with their own unique versions of these games. And we've seen that around for consulting and non-consulting. And so this AI-assisted interviews are likely to have similar patterns. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Great question. So there's a few questions of there. What does it mean for the industry? What does it mean for the candidate? I think for the industry, what it means is this is a new way of working. We all know that AI is coming. Everybody's talking about AI plus consulting, what's going to change, how are they going to function. Then there's, on the other end of the spectrum, there's McKinsey killers and Big Four killers. Those kind of articles are there everywhere. I think what people realize is consulting is a very complex business. There's parts which are the people parts. That's not going to change. That has to be people. People buy from other people. They just don't buy from machines. That's never going to change. Some parts of the business are going to be automatable. AI is going to accelerate those parts. And what it means for the industry is McKinsey's taken this first step, or let's say one of the few players that's taking this first step to testing candidates. What it'll mean for the industry is all of the players will probably go towards that direction. Why? Because they all have the same talent pool. You talk about undergrads, grads, MBAs, experienced hires. That's in that age range. They all are either living with AI, basically AI fluent, or are AI native, which they run their lives on AI. So I think everybody will come up with some sort of a test, which basically means that not only will candidates need to do their basic interviews, so you've got round 00, which is the recruiter chit chat. Then you've got the online assessments, that is round 0. Then you have the case interviews, which are very traditional, either virtual or in person. That's not going to change because that's critical reasoning, and there's 6 modules over there that MBB firms and consulting firms test for in general. But then what McKinsey is doing is in round 2, they have 2 case interviews and then 1 AI interview. That's what's being tested right now. We don't know if that's the full rollout plan, but let's just say it is. What that means for candidates is they'll have to not only jump through all these hoops, they'll have to understand this new test. They'll have to preempt what this test will do, and that's what you and I are talking about right now. They'll have to understand how to actually live with AI. So when they use ChatGPT next time or any other software that they're used to, they'll have to be very mindful of what sort of prompts they're giving. So you have to prompt with an output mindset where fewer prompts, the better. And so that's how you kind of prepare, I would say. But yes, for candidates, it means another level of testing.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you want to test if candidates are AI literate, as AI literacy is probably going to be taught in schools, and they want to be ahead of the curve. So it's going to be something like, are you comfortable with maths? Are you comfortable with Excel and PowerPoint? Are you comfortable with AI? Are you good at asking good questions and good prompts? Are you good at spotting bad answers? Are you good at using them to move faster without sacrificing the quality? And I think those are the things that they're going to be looking for. But one of the things I think what it's going to do is it's also going to change for the consultant is the prep and the kind of prep that they're doing. Business schools, consulting clubs, case prep platforms. You're going to have to implement AI. We're going to have to integrate AI case drills into case training. and it's going to be something where you mustn't focus 100% on AR cases, but you must definitely incorporate it and use it to improve your skills on not just maybe the AR cases, but also AI in general.
I agree. I think not only will firms change how they interview candidates, so there'll be some sort of AI augmented case that they are going to roll out. I think most probably in 2026 it's coming. I think everybody watching this podcast is thinking, oh yeah, I could see that coming because that's how life is nowadays. I think Meta was the first software company to say, yes, you can use AI in terms of your interviews. In fact, if you don't use AI, that'll be a problem. I think that's the first step consulting is going to start taking in 2026 and beyond. I think it's going to get only more and more complex in terms of how these AI literacy skills are tested. I think what CaseBasix is going to do is first we're going to understand what these firms are doing, what McKinsey is doing. Because there's a lot of AI tests out there which don't represent what the McKinsey AI interview is. It's not as simple as the AI prompting you to then solve the case. That is for you. That's for your prep. This is a bit different. This will be a client has a problem, so you might get a prompt. And then you have AI at the background. It's not client facing, it's not the client, it's not role playing the client. And then you have to take the requirements, work with the interviewer, and basically try to understand what is it that the interviewer wants. Then you work with your AI assistant to, let's say, build a framework, define data needs, then ask for the data, then cleanse the data, and then drive the case with the interviewer. That is totally different than what's out there in the market.
So it's not turning you into a data science or a data analyst, but it's more about taking the skills that you're trying to build or that you're already building and showing that you can then apply them to the world of AI. And it's also something candidates just need to get comfortable using early on in their everyday life and in their consulting career. So not just McKinsey, but no matter which firm you apply to, this is something that probably we're going to start seeing a lot more of.
So Greg, you bring up a great point about data scientists. The funny thing is consultants are basically researchers that take a hypothesis, which is most probably a business hypothesis, test that hypothesis with data, and then tell the client what works, what doesn't work. So they're doing a whole bunch of testing, and in a way, they are lab testers in $1,000 suit. Now, you talked about data scientists. A lot of this will turn towards how much data can you crunch easier using AI as your assistant. Traditionally, what consultants have had to do is not only learn Excel as their base tool, they have also had to learn Alteryx and Python, which is a programming language, to churn all this data, to process all this data. I think it'll become easier for consultants to do that, right? Like they can do a lot more heavy lifting. They don't have to send it to back offices to process. They have a lot more control over how they want to analyze, what they want to see. Maybe the output times are shorter. So I think that is what's going to be tested. And it's going to be interesting to see how candidates do that, because currently, when you interview with MBB firms, and specifically McKinsey, they just test you on whether you know the 6 modules, which is clarifying questions, framework, speed math, case math, brainstorming, and data analysis. That's it. They don't test you on if we gave you a real life massive data trove, what are you going to do with that data? How are you going to synthesize that data? What are you going to use? What are you going to throw away? So I think that element is going to be brought in, and people will realize that traditional casing and casing in, let's just say, a simulated environment, they're two different things. And that's why I keep saying, I think AI-augmented casing is going to test your skills in ways that traditional casing does not test.
Very much agree with you. Very much agree with you. And that is very interesting. But moving on, and the question probably on every candidate's lips are, okay, you've told me about the AI interviews, you've explained, you've given me a deep dive, but can you talk me through the process for McKinsey? I'd like to understand the new process, which includes this AI interview as opposed to the old process.
So right now, what McKinsey's doing is beta testing this in 2025. And typically what we've seen with McKinsey is they will spend some time rolling out a new feature, let's say a game, because that's the history that we have. And I'll go into bit about the history of how McKinsey launches games because it's, I think, very relevant to what they're going to do with the McKinsey AI interview. Then they're going to decide whether it works or not. Then they're going to decide how to measure it, how to give feedback to candidates, and then they're going to decide where to put this test in. So let me give you a history of what McKinsey's done, the challenges that they've faced, and what we think McKinsey's going to do based on all of that. So in 2021, 2022, in that time frame, they started beta testing games, and this was a departure from the problem-solving test, which was just a PDF document, and all you had to do was take a GMAT-like test to showcase that you understand how to do math, verbal reasoning, and all that kind of stuff. McKinsey realized they have a younger demographic that grew up on games, right? Game consoles like Sony, Xbox, and so on and so forth. And what they decided is they launched something called the Plant Defense. Plant Defense was a game, like an interface with animals walking around, and they had to get from point A to point B. They tested it, they launched it, it received very good feedback. Then they went to another game called Ecosystem. Nothing to do with business cases, it had everything to do with carnivores and herbivores, above water, underwater, and so on and so forth. Then they launched Red Rock, which you just talked about, and that was a case, a full case, but it has business cases and non-business cases. One of the non-business cases is about a wolf pack, right? So they're testing critical reasoning skills rather than your math skills alone or your verbal reasoning skills alone or your business acumen. The last game that they launched is Seawolf. It used to be called Ocean Cleanup. It has nothing to do with wolves, but it is about microbes in an ocean. So it could be called Seawolf. It's not about wolves. It could be called Red Rock. It has nothing to do with rocks. It has everything to do with wolves. So that I find kind of funny. They would give two tests, let's say the Ecosystem and the Red Rock, and then they'd give Ocean Cleanup at that time when it was under beta testing, or now it's called Seawolf, was not a graded test. And they did this for like 6 months, and then they started grading the tests. They didn't tell anybody about it. They just changed the rules. And suddenly they took out Ecosystem. And some regions reported that they still were getting the ecosystem. Some regions reported they're not getting the ecosystem. So McKinsey likes to keep things dynamic. And I think that's what's going to happen with the McKinsey AI interview. So what they're going to probably do in 2025, they've started testing this with a small subset in a small region. We already know that. In 2026, they're going to slowly ramp that up, find out what issues they're having with tech, with feedback, with areas where they can improve. Maybe the AI isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And remember, they have to keep it relatively standard for everybody, because if AI is moody with you and it's not moody with me, I have a higher chance of getting in and you don't. And maybe they'll come up with a grading system where they know what the AI did, and IT will tell them, oh, when Greg was taking it, AI was behaving badly. So if you get the same results as I do, then you're a better consultant than I am. So you should deserve the job, right? And so I think that's what they'll try to figure out is, can we understand how candidates can tame AI and still deliver output? That is the key test here. And then they're going to slowly go region by region and improve on their delivery, improve on their user experience, and they're going to launch it. But I feel that in September 2026, this will be launched probably globally to everybody, because in AI, everything is moving so fast. So I think they'll want to keep up that pace. They also want to be number one in the industry doing this. And I think a lot of the user base, which is the talent pool, will really enjoy this. I think clients are looking at this. We are definitely looking at this. I think that is kind of the rollout plan. Obviously, there could be changes. So if you ask me, are AI augmented interviews here to stay? I would say yes, they're coming.
I really like that, and I didn't know that about the games and that whole iteration process. That is new information for me. And I've played the games, I've done the games, and I've probably gotten to the end point when they perfected the games, and the tech was pretty good. The games were a little bit challenging and quite enjoyable. But moving back to the candidate, I think what you were saying, what it seems like is candidates can still expect the same amount of rounds, the same multiple rounds, where you're still doing the case performance, you're doing the case interview, you're still doing the PER, but this AI interview, I'd say let's call it an extra insight tool or an extra interview tool, which McKinsey will use as a way to see how you behave using AI and how AI also interacts with yourself. Like you said, is AI being moody to this candidate as opposed to another candidate, and then seeing how that progresses. And it's probably just looking at if you look at the McKinsey valuation rubric, it's probably just a couple of extra lines or an extra KPI that candidates need to hit. So nothing really major in terms of that. But we, candidates are, would you say are now, what are they looking for explicitly with this AI tool? Clear prompts. How do you then answer the prompts? How do you give feedback? Or what are you thinking of some of the things that they're going to be looking for there?
So a few things that they'd be looking for is, overarchingly, can you work with AI and manage its moods, period, right? That's number one. Second thing they'll be looking for is, can you manage your own emotions when AI isn't delivering? And I think they'll program the AI to kind of be moody at times because that's the nature of AI. Nobody controls it. I don't think McKinsey owns their own AI software. I think it's a third party. So it's going to be something that's out of McKinsey's control. What they can control is the consultant and how they train the consultant to manage this AI. Specifically, what they're going to test for is, can you prompt the AI to give you results in fewer prompts? Do you have clarity of thinking to understand what the client actually wants and what you tell the AI? Over there, the first part is a traditional case. You always need to define what the client wants. Sometimes the client is struggling to understand what they should want. And so a great consultant always understands what the client wants, takes that understanding, breaks it down into a framework, and then gets AI involved. I think that's what's going to be tested. So the framework is going to be there. What you do post-framework is going to be tested. So let's say in a profitability case, you could be like, oh, my revenues are going down. How do I check for that? And where are they going down? And how do I improve them? So the first thing would be, how do I check for revenues going down? And so what do you ask the AI to do? So that you have to ask the AI specifically for the P&L. Can you show me the P&L for the last 3 years? Can you identify which revenue streams are going down? If they've gone down, can you mark for me why they have gone down if you understand by yourself? And that'll just save me time and I'll validate that, right? So it'll just create a faster path to going towards that data, which is typically hidden for consultants. Now, let's say you do get that data. The second thing you have to do is validate that, right? You can't take everything that the AI says and present it to the client. Then what's going to happen is the clients will just go back to their own accountants and financial people and say, can you do this for me? Because, I'm being charged so much by the consultant. I think what McKinsey will want is, okay, what's the so what of this? What do you see that the client will not see? That is where the value is. What do you see that creates asymmetry for the client? What do you see that can bring us to an outcome that the client will never even dream of? I think that's the key thing that they want. And that doesn't change from the traditional case where they're always looking for new insights. I mean, in a case, you have to give like 20 to 30 insights. So basically one every minute for a 30-minute case. That won't change. When it comes to brainstorming, you have to define exactly what you want to brainstorm, but I think the AI is going to struggle a bit in being messy, so you have to come in and fill in the gaps. I think case math, the AI still hallucinates it right now, so you might have to structure it for the AI, do some quick math, but then also check it. But let's say then you want to build something in Excel, you need to tell the AI to then export it into Excel, make sure Excel looks fine, because Excel and the AI may not work with each other right now, and you don't want to trust it right away. So are the units there? Are the cells interlinked? Are they being picked up properly by the software, and so on and so forth? Now, let's move on to things like data analysis. I touched on high-level data, but AI is not going to make you slides. So let's say you bring all this information, you still have to put it on a slide. You still have to communicate to the client very effectively. So what McKinsey is very good at is focusing the CEO's attention on where on the slide they need to look at to understand what McKinsey is trying to say. I think that's the part of communication that will not go away. Finally, I think what's going to happen is clients are going to then look into the consultant's eyes and really gauge for the one thing that they always gauge for is confidence. Before, it was 100% consultant, maybe some experts behind the scenes helping the consultant, but everything went through the consultant's mind. Now, some things are going to be recommended by AI, and now the consultant will have to have the same amount of conviction in, let's say, 30% less time, but also be able to tell the client, yes, I did use AI. Yes, I have validated everything. I stand behind my results and the AI's results. So in some ways, you are the spokesperson for this AI, which is Moody. So I think those kind of things will be tested.
No, I totally agree. But I want to go back to a point, something you mentioned earlier, and that is this AI interview. It's currently only being piloted in America, some parts of North America. But I live in South Africa. So what does this mean for people not living in North America? When do you think they could expect to be given one of these AI interviews?
I think if somebody is thinking about 2026 applications, if you are the person who's thinking about in 2026, I've got to interview with McKinsey, expect this wherever you are. Why I say that is if McKinsey's already started beta testing, they've probably done some alpha testing in controlled environment within McKinsey. We know they're already using it. So I wouldn't be surprised that they want a trained workforce that can work with their internal AI. So if this happens, this will ramp up pretty quickly. It may not be graded, but you will be tested in 2026. That's my hypothesis.
If worst comes to worst, just go to the recruitment team, send a recruiter a direct email from the office that you're applying to, and I'm pretty sure you can just straight up ask them whether an AI interview will be part of the process or not.
Correct. So you can ask the recruiter. The recruiters may or may not have that information, but the other thing you can do is keep checking CaseBasix website for updates on this one. We'll keep following this. Any news that we get, we will try to break it as soon as possible so that you are prepped.
I've got a follow-up question. I've done the interviews, I've passed. I'm now a McKinsey consultant. What does it mean, or what does it look like to be a McKinsey AI-empowered consultant?
I think what's going to do is, first of all, give you a lot of confidence because there's not a whole lot of people out there who are doing what you're doing. There are a lot of consultants out there who can reliably use AI and then give the client a recommendation in, let's say, 30% less time, but the same level of quality that McKinsey expects. There are consultants out there who are trying to use AI. The AI is not that reliable. They're finding it out in the worst possible way when the clients tell them in a very public setting. You don't want that. And so what will happen is McKinsey will expect consultants to be top 1%. That will not change. And so I think consultants will get this confidence in 2026 and beyond that there are very few people who can tame AI and give reliable results, which are high impact. So continue doing that. Expect to work with AI. If you're already working with AI, expect to do better with AI. And I think that's how life is going to be 2026 and beyond. That's not going to change.
Okay, and I appreciate those insights. So I think one final thing for our candidates are, if you're preparing for a McKinsey interview in 2026, continue with your standard consulting case prep, but also likely prepare for an AI interview. But I wouldn't spend majority of my prep on AI interview, but I would incorporate it.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your time, Mayank. That was very insightful, and I hope our listeners enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Greg. That was great. And for everybody, join us next week for another podcast. Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.